The immigration bubble is imploding, and it's imploding at record pace. We could have 1 million people exit Canada by year end, and 10,000, the largest layoff in Ontario's history, and people's mortgage renewals are being denied. A skyrocketing amount of people are leaving Canada. They are done with the Canadian depression, and this number is set to absolutely skyrocket, as it already is, having dramatic effects on the housing market. Now, we've discussed this article a few times. 2 million people are expected to leave in the country's immigration reset, but what happens if they don't? But it turns out, well, they actually are. So a record number of people are leaving Canada. New StatCan data reveals so over 200,000 left in Q1. According to Statistics Canada, an increasing number of people are leaving Canada. 27,086 citizens and permanent residents emigrated from January to March this year. That's the second highest first quarter total since 2017, when 27,115 left the country. So really not that much of a difference between the two there. The record-setting outflow of people in the first quarter of 2025 is likely only the beginning, as the number of people leaving Canada tends to peak in the third quarter of the year before dropping slightly in the fourth quarter. So this is just going to ramp up and ramp up and ramp up. But then you've got non-permanent residents, right? This is really key. So you've got over 200,000 who left the country in Q1. So you've got a massive increase in the amount of people that are leaving Canada. So this could really hit over 1 million by the year end. Over 1 million people will have left Canada and got away from the Canadian depression. And really, you've got to think, what is the government's plan here? Because you know that they're going to come in and they're going to try and restrict people as much as possible from leaving, because they love restricting people's freedoms. That's what people voted for at the end of the day. They voted for a dystopian government, and that's exactly what they're going to get. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I think the most obvious thing that could be coming in the future is the government starts to tax home equity on those leaving Canada, because guess what? A lot of those people who are leaving Canada, they have that home equity which they're going to live off maybe into their retirement in a new country. So how could the government easily stop that? A home equity tax, not on everybody, only on people leaving, and that would get the elbows up crew really going, because they just love dystopian government rules, and that would essentially handcuff people to Canada. And right now that's excluded from the exit tax, but it could easily just be included without that much pushback. And I think that is one of the risks that people have to think about. If you don't leave now, what are the chances you're going to be able to leave in the future? What new rules could be coming in the future that could stop you from leaving? So the numbers are likely to continue rising. Canada's population growth at 0% so far this year. So this is obviously really taking its toll on the rental market, which we'll get into. So rents in Canada fall for the 9th straight month, still above 2022 levels. So, you know, rent are going down into an inflationary environment. The slowing population growth obviously has an indirect effect on the housing market through the fact that, guess what? If people aren't renting those units, if rent prices are going down, who the fuck is going to invest in the housing market? They're just not going to. And that's why investors have completely deserted the housing market, because it makes 0 sense to invest in it right now. So the agency says the Canadian population rose by 20,107 people from January 1st to April 1st, the smallest increase since the third quarter of 2020 during the pandemic. So again, the immigration bubble is imploding, and it's imploding at record pace. We could have 1 million people exit Canada by year end. And obviously that goes with massive ramifications for things like the rental market and also the Canadian economy. So basically what's happening right now is the veil is being lifted, and people are going to see the skeleton that is behind the curtain, which is the Canadian economy.
Our economy is very strong.
And then you've got Canada saw a 46% drop in study permit applications in January. And this is really interesting because study permits obviously going down. You've quietly had 10,000 people laid off in Ontario who work for these colleges. So, I mean, this is a huge amount of people here in what's being described as one of the largest mass layoffs in Ontario's history. More than 10,000 college faculty and staff have been let go, and more than 600 college programs suspended or cancelled over the past year. So think about how many of these people have mortgage payments. You know, the average person in Canada has what, like $18,000 in household debt, and that's without their mortgage. You've got the mortgage commitments in Ontario being astronomical for most people, and a lot of these colleges are in areas where home prices have skyrocketed and have corrected massively. So again, any of these people who moved in 2021 and 2022, they could be in trouble here. And 10,000, the largest layoff in Ontario's history. I mean, it's just crazy to think about, but it just shows how much this immigration bubble imploding affects the Canadian economy. It's not just the housing market, it's also the labor market that is being affected. And people's mortgage renewals are being denied. My mortgage was supposed to renew next month, but the bank denied the renewal. I've had my house up for sale for a few months, but it has not sold, and it seems like there are no interested buyers. At this time, I cannot renew with any lenders, not AB or private. If my house is not sold by the renewal date, what is the bank going to do? What are my options? So again, people are getting into serious shit right now because they can't sell their house for what they need to sell it for because they haven't got the money to even take the loss. And in that sort of scenario, the bank going after them, I mean, are they going to make any money? Probably not, because they don't even have the money to take the loss. So then who is going to be saddled with the loss? It's going to be the banks, and the banks have been taking extreme risk on developers and these condo towers. So there is massive risk in the financial system right now. It is all stacked like a house of cards, exactly like it was in the US before 2008. You haven't got ninja loans, but you've got loans that are as similar to ninja loans because they're tied to extreme risk. When you're lending more than a unit's worth, I mean, that is extremely risky. I mean, that's more than 100% loan to value ratio in a lot of cases, but that's what they're prepared to do because they know how bad the financial system is right now. And if they don't do that, it means that they're in trouble, and they don't want that to happen yet. They rather it happen to somebody else probably as they're playing past the hot potato and musical chairs. So it's kind of crazy. And then basically Oxford Economics is saying that Canada is going to fall deeper into a recession despite the lower tariffs. Now, this is really interesting because Oxford Economics was one of the people who was sounding the alarm on the Canadian real estate market before it crashed. I mean, listen to this. Canadian real estate prices expected to drop 24% in their base case, but could crash 40%. But if you go down here, Canadian home prices expected to fall by 24% by 2024. They didn't go down that much, but they got pretty close to it in 2024. And especially if you factor in inflation, they were over 24%. So Oxford Economics actually coming out with this in 2022. They were more on the ball than all the Canadian banks were back then. A worse recession than once thought.
The economy is very weak. The economy is in a year-long recession in scenario 2.
And basically, Oxford Economics is citing this because of global demand, essentially the global recession that is unfolding here. So it really, again, just shows you what's going on. And then just more stories about what's going on in the labor market. My friend got laid off from tech and can't even land a basic job. Is the job market really this bad out there? You know, you've just had 10,000 people over the past year that have been let go from colleges, university, maybe in the past 6 months. So, and you're just adding more and more job losses that are happening all the time. And do you think people are likely to take investment capital and deploy it in this environment right now when you've got weak demand within the economy, when the housing market is worsening? And that's a big economic driver for Canada because Canada is so reliant on the Canadian housing market. I mean, it's not oil and gas and commodities commodities anymore. It's the housing market. That's what Canada turned to. And it's ultimately a disaster that happened. But again, I mean, it happens time and time again in different countries around the world. These bubbles form, and it's especially common when it comes to housing markets because people always think they can't lose on housing. And then time and time again, they're proven wrong by that, and they do lose on housing. So it just shows you what's going on here. Calgary housing inventory returns to 2021 levels. And again, they kind of point to tariffs being the issue here, but I was even calling this that the market turned in October of last year. And the Calgary housing market is flipped, and not only has it flipped, the fundamentals of the investing in Calgary argument are also completely going to shit. So if I can see it, then these people should have been able to see it. And obviously this is coming from the Canadian Real Estate Association board. So what do you expect? They were calling saying, oh, it's going to be a great year next year. We're just going to see an extension of what we've already seen in the Calgary market. But now the Calgary market is turning that corner. And again, with the record amount of sales that you've seen over the past couple of years, all those people are going to be tipped underwater. And guess what? If a lot of those people were people who actually move, what sort of severance packages are they likely going to get? Are they more likely to be the ones that are let go from their jobs if they've been doing it a couple of years? Yes. So again, it's pretty easy to see the risk here. And time again, these things repeat and we see them happen in places like Calgary. And we're just going to see these cycles just repeat just as they have done in the past, where more and more people are underwater on homes in places like Calgary and Edmonton coming as well. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, I'd highly recommend this video here. And then if you're looking for a VPN and also want to help support the channel, check the links in the description below. That would be ExpressVPN. It's the VPN that I am using. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.